Welcome to our second class in the ITGL class preview week. My name is Serena Stewart. I am Associate Director of Admissions, and I am here with Dr. Trexler. I'll let him introduce himself and take it away because he'll be our instructor for today's class.
Well, thank you very much, Serena, and hello to everyone out there, and welcome to today's class preview. This is a class entitled Advanced Instructional Strategies. This is a class that has been ongoing in ITGL for over 5 years now. And the goal of the course is to teach the field within education of learning design. This is where we learn in this course to develop international instruction for many different audiences, K through 12, and also university level and even business applications of how we scientifically design instruction for many different audiences. So I'm glad you could join me today. Across all our courses, we follow research-based models that we know works on an international scale. And in learning design and advanced instructional strategies, there is no difference. We follow research scientifically based manuals and instructions to create new and exciting instruction for many different audiences. And one instructional model I want to share with you today as part of this class preview that we discuss most wholeheartedly in the course is Bloom's taxonomy of instructional strategies. Bloom's taxonomy has been around for over several decades now, and it is a proven instructional design model where we create learning objectives and align them to evidence of learning. So if you notice on the left side of the graphic, it begins with us creating lower order thinking skills for our students. And again, whether those students are in a K through 12 setting or a university setting. And we move to higher order thinking skills. So on the right-hand side, it tells you more about, and we will reveal another graphic that we use during the course, but it is a visual map. So it begins with remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. The issue right now in our international world with instructional design and learning design is quite simply that too often, and actually far too often, we stop at the understanding level of creating learning objectives for our students. And in this course in ITGL, you will learn how to design instruction for higher order thinking skills. I think all of us as international educators want to design instruction that moves to a higher level for our students to gain a deeper understanding of the subject matter that we are presenting in front of them. And as you can see, this model goes completely to the top with the creating level. And that is truly where we have students doing hands-on projects or students assessing case studies. And that is our goal, is where we want to move our students to a higher order of learning. So this is in session 6, we cover this in our course in ITGL. And so one of the things we discuss is the difference between formative and summative assessments, because quite often it's just not enough to create effective learning objectives, but we also need to figure out how we are going to assess our students for learning. And again, that could be students who are attending classes in a K through 12 setting, but that can also be students who are learning at a university level. So in this session 6 of our course, we compare assessment strategies, and we really get down to figuring out what works best for each level. And then we identify feedback practices that move learning forward. We want to make sure that when we design instruction that the students are able to move forward with their learning. And it goes without saying, in all our coursework in ITGL, we talk about data-driven instruction and data-driven leadership instructional design. And we want to connect out the evidence to these next steps. And so what we figure out here in session 6 together in our learning is, why does Bloom matter? And really, we would say that well-written objectives clarify the level of thinking students should demonstrate so assessment matches the attended cognitive demand. So also in this session, and really throughout the course, we talk about our session objectives. We talk about how we can clarify the ADDIE design assignments and expectations. So ADDIE is the instructional model that we are working through. So that is analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. So ADDIE is abbreviation for each of those stages. In step 3, we connect. We connect the assessment types to student engagement, ownership, and feedback. And we want to, as I mentioned in the previous slide, we want to elevate our students by the instruction that we design to the top of the pyramid, where they are truly creating their own projects for deeper learning outcomes. And we want to make sure that anything that we write and design and create, our students can apply those into the real world. And it also, in this session and throughout the course, we talk about collaboration. Today, and you will see in later slides, with the integration of artificial intelligence into learning design, it becomes incredibly important for us to collaborate as a team and to generate questions. So we talk again about why learning objectives and assessments must align. And we really have two purposes here. We have assessment of learning. And probably all of us have experienced the assessment of learning. This is when we take a test or a quiz or some type of end of the chapter knowledge check. And these summative checks determine whether students can demonstrate mastery over an overarching unit or objectives. And it keeps our instructional unit focused on the performance or understanding of what matters most. So I think most of us as career educators are very well aware of summative assessment. But one of the things we learned in this course that it makes an incredible difference to learning is we also learn how to do an assessment for learning, not just of learning, but for learning. And when we talk about that, we're talking about the field of formative assessments. And formative assessments provide information during learning, not at the end, but while the student is engaged with the learning. And so in our course, we learn how to design formative assessments. And I personally feel, as a faculty teaching this course, this gives you a cutting edge lead for career outcomes, because you will come to opportunities in your career where you will know when and how to design formative assessments. And why do we care about this? Well, it helps you as instructors, either as a faculty someday teaching at a university or teaching in a K through 12 environment, to adjust your instructional scaffolds, your differentiation of support, and giving feedback as students build towards their unit or learning goals. This becomes incredibly important. And so our learning design takeaway, as I say there at the bottom of the slide, starts with the outcome. It asks all of us to define the evidence, and then it asks us to choose what is the most appropriate learning experience. And again, in this course, we do talk about summative assessments, but we do actually have you create formative assessments because I truly feel, again, that gives you a competitive edge of becoming a learning designer on an international platform here in education. So, in the middle design stage of our ADDIE project that you will do together as a group, we establish the overall learning goal for the instructional unit. And so, as a team, you'll write learning and lesson objectives in terms of what learners will know and be able to do using the earlier model that I showed with Bloom's taxonomy. In that, you're going to include and learn how to include detailed descriptions of the unit and the session objectives. And then you're going to be able to describe the final summative assessment that clearly matches that goal. So we give you checklists during the course, and you'll be able to review the assignment directions, set up your rubric, and use the learning problem from the ADDIE analysis as the anchor for your design choices. Again, we are using a research scientific-based model that is used actually out across Johns Hopkins University work units that are designing instruction for students at a undergraduate and graduate level. So the ADDIE model is incredibly important. The reason we use is it shows logical progression across sessions so students can build toward the final evidence of learning. And then what you'll do as a team is you will upload your project design ideas for grading throughout the course. But in the end, you're going to have a completely designed project. So the getting into a little bit of a summary of what the project will be, often students design a 10-session instructional plan. And this mirrors what happens in real life with learning designers, whether you're working at a university, working with faculty, or you're working in a K through 12 setting. So we suggest you start with the problem. Your course, your workshop, your webinar, your goal should directly address the problem identified during the first stage of the ADDIE design plan, which is the analysis phase. In step two, you're going to learn how to write measurable objectives. And again, we will use that pyramid model of Bloom's taxonomy to create clear objectives that states what the learners will demonstrate and know how to do. And this is incredibly important to our learners because it provides a sequence for their growth. And you'll be able to take these 10 sessions and figure out as a team how to arrange them so that the learning arc, as we talk about, moves logically from foundational understanding, which was the first level of Bloom's pyramid, towards application and ownership. And I can tell you today that step three with the sequence of growth is incredibly important. I want you to think and reflect on your own learning and how many times you may have been in a course or a subject area of session where you felt like the sequence for growth was disorganized, where you really struggled how to figure out what was the logical arrangement. And that sometimes gets to poor instructional design. And so in this course, we want to set the facts straight. We want to make sure that you are a leader in creating instruction on an international platform. And so we talk a lot about what should be the sequence for growth with your team project. So often we use stems like students will be able to, and by the end of the lesson, students will demonstrate. These are key wording patterns when we set forth measurable learning objectives. So what we do is we will walk through each of these stages. So we have typically what we call a unit goal. So we ask your team and we ask yourself to reflect on what should students master. And sometimes this is actually too, I challenge students to do projects that may be outside of typical academics. So we have right now in my course, we have some students that are looking at social emotional learning, not just the traditional academic areas that we have. This model, that's what's so exciting about this model. When you learn this model can be applied to many different areas for learning, not just our traditional academics, but you can apply it to social emotional learning and all kinds of other affective changes that you may want to make with your students. It also teaches you how students will be able to prove their mastery through evidence. And again, as we talked on the previous slide, it allows you to become an expert really in establishing the learning sequence of the experience for the students. So we set up that you'll be able to do a strong summative assessment that feels authentic to students and engaging, and it gives students a sense of ownership and really ideally produces a work that can be shared with others. Think of the final assessment as really the clear demonstration of the unit. And so we talk about at this stage of the ADDIE process that lesson objectives are really the stepping stones that connect the opening goal to the final performance. And often, what I have found in my years of experience as a learning designer myself at both a K through 12 and university level is this is where people lack the big picture. They often have a very exciting project, but they're unable to design learning objectives considered as stepping stones towards final performance. And so in this course in ITGL, you will learn how to do that, and you will learn how to do that with applying real life skills. So again, we take a deeper dive into some of the questioning strategies through Bloom's taxonomy, and we really focus in on using this model to design effective questions. And so we ask you to consider taking many of these aided questions and embedding them into your instruction. So it's a very simple model to use, but it's very powerful, and often people do not use it enough in their part of their learning design. So you can see over on the right-hand side, we discuss these sample question stems, as we call them, that you can ask your students. So it begins at the remember level. And these are typically, many of you can reflect on your own instruction that you received and where the teacher or faculty ask you what happened. What can your students recall? It moves up to understand. How would you summarize or explain something? And then this is exciting. At the middle part of the model is where we really begin to design instruction that requires our students to do deeper thinking. So when we start talking about apply and analyze, we're looking at new situations and asking students, what patterns did you see? What causes or relationships did you notice in the content that we're presenting them? And then finally, the final two stages are evaluate, what criteria you would use to judge or defend a choice. And at the very top is what we can, as learning designers, produce or propose as part of our instructional design. So again, we focus on assessments. We focus on matching the learning goals to the assessments. So we match the Bloom level where we are asking students to analyze or evaluate with the same assessment. So we're saying that the assessment should demand more than just recall. Far, far too often, we have all been through instruction that has only asked us to memorize. It has only asked us to do 1 or 2 word recall. And that is just not satisfactory anymore with international learning across many different audiences. We need to begin to design instruction that is asking more of our students. So we teach you in this course how to do that. How should you be able to write instruction that's going to demonstrate more recall? And so we asked you to consider what would be the evidence to that. So if we're going to ask students to create a product, make some type of performance, or respond that lets us know and the students show what they know they can do. And this is so important today. Far too often, we are not asking our students to make evidence visible to us during the learning process. And that is simply because the instructional design plans that we are creating do not pay attention to that. We are assuming that students know how to do that. And so we need to begin to build in this evidence to make things visible. The third critical area under assessments is we need to plan for feedback. And in this course, you will learn different strategies of how to do that. And again, one of the things I personally feel we will give you the skills to do is how to create formative checks, which help your students revise before a bigger test that you give them. So this is very strategic when we're talking about assessments. So again, we offer many different models during this course, and here's one I personally like is where the learner is now, where the learner is going, and how are they going to get there. I think this is a very simple yet very impactful model that we want to use in our learning designs. And so when we ask ourselves these questions, it helps us create the instruction we know is necessary for our various audiences. And again, what you're going to learn in this course can be applied in a university setting, working with faculty, or someday you will be a faculty yourself teaching, and you will need to go back and review some of these instructional design models that you're learning in this course. But it can also be applied in a K through 12 setting. And again, one of the critical things is these formative checks that we're going to need to create whether instruction needs to be adjusted. One of the incredibly important things that we should be asking our students is the why it matters self-assessment checklist. And self-assessments strengthen really the metacognition of our students. And this is truly when students can judge the quality of their own work against the criteria of the assignment, and they become more capable of revising, explaining, and eventually owning their learning. And I think that's a really key word, owning their learning. We need to make sure that we build into our instructional design plans the idea behind why it matters for them to learn what they're doing. And so in my box next to that, I like to say, and we discussed this during a course, that when this is implemented appropriately, the output of the self-assessment process truly provides our students with evidence by helping them identify ways to improve their work or to set goals further action as appropriate. Far too often, we are not teaching students how to learn for themselves, right? And you all know, many of you who are in a university setting or have completed your undergraduate degree, you know that this is an incredibly important skill to own and understand how to do as you move into college and university learning. And so in this course, in ITGL, we talk about this self-assessment strategy and how can you help students learn themselves how to provide evidence and strategically learn the content more appropriately. And this becomes a very important thing. So the continuum for engagement is really what we are after in our learning designs. And I really love this graphic, and it's a graphic that we often choose to use and discuss in the class. And it's really continuum. So many of teachers, many instructional leaders are simply happy with a student who at the bottom there of the ladder is compliant. And so we talk most of the time behaviorally about this, that they're not talking, they're obeying the rules of the classroom, but they're not really doing much else. And moving up from there, we want students to begin to make a commitment, build relationships with the teachers, build relationships with each other, and take responsibility for their learning. We also want them to make connections, how to apply learning to discover and explore new ideas beyond the content that we are delivering to them. And we want them to flow with a purpose for themselves to present back what they have learned. And we call this, and we talk about it during the course, this is our continuum of engagement. This is where we expect students to be the most creative they can possibly be and be fully engaged in the content. And a lot of this comes from how we create and develop our instruction for students as part of good learning design. And that is another important concept that you will learn in this course. So I thought today I would just present to you. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to do these, but I wanted to present to you some things that we are currently doing as part of assignments in the course, but just giving you kind of a quick in-class activity that we're looking at. And so we certainly know that artificial intelligence is having many different impacts in education right now. And learning design, or how we create instruction, is no different. And so we're beginning to see on an international scale how AI has come into our lives with regard to learning design. So right now, what we would do is we would choose a short international case study to review, and that could be an article, a video clip, or some data set that's relevant to something that your team, your project is working on. And we would ask you to write one question at the Bloom level of remember all the way up to create. So we would ask your team to create a learning objective goal using that. Then here's what's important, and this is what's happening in the real world right now. We would ask you to use AI to draft two versions of each question, one that might be too easy and one that seems to be at the right level of bloom. We would then ask you to revise your group with your group, and and here's the key question, what makes the cognitive demand visible, and what evidence would count for you to know that learning occurred with your student? And then typically when we do these type of in-class activities, we share one high quality evaluate or create prompt with each other that matches out to the evidence of learning. And I feel this is always a really good way to kind of introduce how AI is affecting the pathway of learning design. Here's another kind of way that we think about now AI in education with regard to learning design. So Bloom Aligned uses with guardrails in place so that often, again, at the remember level, we generate retrieval practice, low stakes quizzes, and flashcards. And certainly we can have AI help us do that. And so we learn how to do that at that level of Bloom. Moving up on Bloom's taxonomy, we go to the understand level. We ask AI to explain a concept in maybe 2 to 3 different ways, and students choose the clearest way, and they annotate any misconceptions that the AI output might be. And this is a key part. The key part to all of this is how can we begin to use AI as a thought partner in learning design? So this is incredibly important, and this is kind of a new phase since I have, as faculty, been teaching advanced instructional strategies. I have begun to, in this course, show how AI, again, has had an impact in learning design. So we work all the way up through that, and we talk about and we look at the evaluation of Bloom, where we critique an AI answer using a rubric. We do analysis where we're comparing AI outputs to a trusted source that we know. And then at the create level, we're co-designing a product, and that could be an instructional plan, an infographic, a script, a prototype with required citations, and then we revise that. So today I wanted to give you these two examples of how I am envisioning AI is being used in this classroom. I will mention to you too, in our course, we invite in guest speakers from around the university to come in to talk to our ITGL students about how they're currently using these tools in their designs of instruction at a university level. And I, as faculty, feel this is incredibly important as you begin to consider employment and career opportunities into the field of learning design.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Trexler, for your class preview. I know I learned a lot, so I hope our audience learned a lot as well. This is your time to ask Dr. Trexler anything about the class that he talked about, or if you have any questions about the ITGL program or the admissions process, please use the Q&A function. We do have plenty of time to answer your question. So if you have a burning question, please use the Q&A function. While you are thinking of any questions to pose to myself or to Mark, I do want to go over just a quick reminder of our admissions timeline. We are moving to the end of the fall 2026 application cycle, but there is still time to apply. Applications are open until April 30th. April 30th is your final deadline to submit your application and also to have all of your supporting documents for your application into our office in order to have your application reviewed. This includes your transcripts or course by course evaluations, any additional letters of recommendation or exam scores that you need to submit with your submitted application. Decisions are continuing to be released. They're released on a rolling basis as you submit your application. We are releasing admission decisions. Enrollment deposits are due 2 weeks after receiving an offer of admission. And then there is an additional final deposit that is due for all students on June 15th. So just be mindful of those dates, deadlines. They are in your offer letter if you have an offer of admission. I know many of you in the audience do. So that way you know you are on track to arrive on time. I do see some questions in the Q&A, so we'll go ahead and we'll tackle those questions. But I also want to allow you plenty of time to know that you have time to ask questions and the ability to ask questions to myself, to Dr. Trexler, to Dr. Adams after our webinar today. So if there's something that you forgot to ask or didn't think to ask, then you can absolutely do that. Okay, so we have a lot of people thanking, so that's great. So the first question is, how does the AI track in ITGL differ from the educational technology and instructional design at Johns Hopkins? So I'm curious if this attendee could just clarify this a little bit more. Are you referring to the difference between the AI track in ITGL and our learning design and technology master's degree? If that is true, please let us know and I can dive into that a little bit for you. Okay. Where do students typically complete their practicum or internships, or are their partners with schools, organizations, or ed tech companies? Do you want to take that, Dr. Trexler?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for that great question. So I am also the extended learning internship coordinator for ITGL. And it's a great question. And I'm going to answer it in many different ways, but specifically to this course, Advanced Instructional Strategies. So this is a course that all our students in ITGL take. And the faculty adjuncts who are teaching it with me are learning designers. And each of them are actually also mentors for extended learning. So they take a small set of our students as interns and host them for and mentor them for extended learning back in their Johns Hopkins work units where instructional design is going on. We also have, though, instructional design opportunities internationally. So we have a faculty in Turkey who runs an organization called Innovative Pedagogy. And innovative pedagogy is involved in the process of using learning design with artificial intelligence. And many of our students give high compliments to this faculty for mentoring them as part of their extended learning experiences. So we do, we have, and it's growing, and the list is growing every month of the incredibly exciting extended learning opportunities that I work on developing for part of our program, where I certainly recognize the importance of AI and having a career focus towards that.
Great, thank you. Awesome. So the question that I had posed earlier, our attendee did get back to us and let us know that yes, they are wanting to know the differences between learning design and technology, that master's degree, and the AI and learning innovation focus area within ITGL. And I'll cover a little bit about what I know of learning design and technology. So first and foremost, the biggest difference between these two degrees is one is in person and an accelerated track. So ITGL is intensive. It's 11 months. It's 33 credits in person on campus and designed to be very quick. It also has international learning and leadership at the forefront. That is core throughout all of the focus areas and the core curriculum in ITGL. The Learning Design and Technology degree can be completed part-time or full-time. It's fully online. It's asynchronous. So the student experience is vastly different in those two programs. And Learning Design and Technology does have a learning experience design concentration that focuses on instructional design, but we have several other concentrations as well. One of them that is being launched right now this year, and in the second year, is AI leadership. That is very much around the ethics of AI and using that in the classroom. So that is a little bit different than technology and learning design implementation. It's also going to focus on that ethics piece in AI. And then there's also a learning engineering concentration. So the curriculum of the programs are vastly different. And then the AI and learning innovation focus area in ITGL. I apologize. I don't know the courses, but Dr. Trexler, if you know anything about that focus area and you want to share, that'd be great.
So yes, and one of the things is this past fall we just launched, which I also taught, was the AI in Education course for the first time in ITGL. So we are very excited about offering this again in the fall, and we're looking to also expand that. I can tell you also that this past month we had our second ITGL hackathon. So I don't know if anybody in our audience has ever attended a hackathon, but we had an educational hackathon where we came together and we had an outside guest speaker come in and show us AI tools to put together a learning experience with one of our extended learning opportunity mentors. So that was a full day at the Pava Center of Entrepreneurship here at Johns Hopkins. And so we plan on next year having our third get together of hackathon, and we will probably do that in this case with our newly renovated School of Education building, where we plan on hosting our third ITGL hackathon.
That's very exciting. And the next question do we have is about career outcomes. Do graduates often obtain work visas and work as instructional designers or in ed tech?
Yeah, so we very much see our students moving on beyond graduation into learning design and instructional design programming. And so we have a fantastic career support office within the School of Education that can help you assist that. All of our faculty as advisors can help assist you with some of your career exploration and opportunities. And then, of course, you have extended learning, and we feel very fortunate to have extended learning in our ITGL program where that can offer some clarity to your decisions that sometimes, maybe this may not be something you would consider, but maybe another area would open up. So we are often encouraging you to explore different areas of opportunities while you're with us, but we will give you full support in figuring out and giving you clarity to some of these career trajectories because clearly they're happening very quickly in the case of AI. So we as faculty continue to stay on top, monitor the job market as to what's going on.
Awesome. Yeah, I will also add that extended learning is very unique to the ITGL program. We do have other programs that have practicums, but the extended learning experience in ITGL kicks off from the very beginning, and you have some control over that placement. Dr. Trexler works very hard in, pairing students and getting them out to, our research centers and to other companies across the globe. So it is a very unique experience in ITGL that our students do. I hear that they are very excited about the opportunity to participate in. So that is it for our open questions. Thank you all so much for attending our webinar here this morning. And as I said, if you have any additional questions about the admissions process, please reach out to me. My email is there. You can always call our office as well. And then Dr. Trexler and Dr. Adams are also available if you have any additional questions about the ITGL program. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see you.